I'm John Nealon, CEO, JCN Financial Tax Advisor Group. We're going on 21 years here now. It's been a fun journey, and I've got a lot of really interesting information to share with you. Okay, buckle up, you ready to get started? I learned this program about 18 years ago from a gentleman that's now deceased, Bob Ritter. He owned a company called Innsmark, and they did a lot of, they sold financial planning tools for high net worth clients. And they're very tax centric. But I learned this distribution order when I went to a symposium in Las Vegas in 2004. And from there, I went and met Bob. I learned how important distribution order is. And we've made that a part of our practice now, going on 18 years. Let's take a peek at how this affects people. So you start off with, this is a hypothetical client, and we're showing what their net worth is, their assets. They've got $110,000 in cash. That $700,000 in tax exempt is Roth money they already have. The good point about that is, when do you spend the Roth? You may have an opinion, most people do have an opinion, and oftentimes their opinion is just an opinion. There's no basis behind it. So we're going to show you in this case when Roth would have been spent. The equity assets are brokerage assets, and then they have $4 million total in retirement accounts for a $7.8 million net worth. Now, I'm also going to show you later with a good bit less money where it still works for them, so you don't have to have $8-10 million for this to be effective. Notice down here, it tells us the liquidation order, fund this retirement, is checking account first, cash second, fixed income first, spouse's IRA retirement plan third, the Roth IRA fourth of the fixed income. You have fixed income and growth on all accounts. Growth account, retirement plan assets, and Roth growth. So the first thing we need to know when we do your plan is how much money is required to live your life. And so it's very important not to underestimate this and to include enough to give you the life you want to have. In this case, this client wants $280,000 a year. So you notice the amount goes up year by year. The reason for that is we're allowing for inflation. So it's not going to buy him any more to have $365 in 10 years, but he'll maintain his purchasing value. Now, the next thing we want to ask is, what is your expected cash flow coming in? This could be Social Security, it could be pension, it could be royalties, any number of things could be expected cash flow. In this case, all we have is Social Security, which is $43,868. And then now we want to, as we put all these assets together, remember on the first page here, I have the most efficient order right here. So we call that good logic. Logically, math-wise, that's the most efficient order. So for bad logic, all I'm doing is I'm saying if you took the absolute worst distribution order, that's the bad logic. Investments are identical. So let's go to logic here, and you see that by age 95, there's two drastically different balances in this man's account, this couple's account. $41,582,781 or $12,837,698. That's a gargantuan difference. It's not a mistake. But you know that the truth is, if this gentleman doesn't know any better, at 95, he might have $12 million and feel like he did very, very well. And this is simply a matter of not taking money out in the right order. To give you an example of how this happens in today's world, if you have an account, money held at a brokerage firm, and you say, I want $100,000 a year for cash, have they ever asked you what you want to sell in order to generate that cash? Or have they ever told you what they're going to sell to get that cash? And in all likelihood, you never heard either party's given an indication of that. So typically what happens in most brokerage firms, they do a pro rata distribution. They take a little bit out of everything. That works for the firm because they're big firms with clients all over the globe. And as you call in or write in for cash, they're not going to do a separate calculation. And it works for them. To you, it works to one extent. You get the cash flow you need, but you can see that if it's not in the right order, this is the biggest single mistake I see most people make. I have an article called, is your IRA an IOU for the IRS? Well, if you kind of look at the way the IRA is designed, the 401k, it's designed for you to put away money and defer the tax and compound the tax throughout your lifetime and your retirement, and then you're forced to take it out. Now, when you're forced to take money out of this retirement account, money through what's called the RMD, after you pay tax on it, you're not allowed to put that into a Roth. So there is a transfer cost at death. So there's the IRD tax on an IRA or 401k at death, and I'll show you what this looks like. This couple here, the life expectancy is 90, so you'll see initially they had $4 million they invested. at the end of the year is 4.28. They had $4 million invested, and the tax due was 1.498, about $1.5 million. By 90, the tax due is $4,075,000. So what they had in the initial retirement, all that goes to the IRS. And in this case, a lot of this is unnecessary. Now, they may not know it's unnecessary, but that doesn't mean it's not unnecessary. So what we've tried to include in the first of 3 efficiencies is distribution order is critical. This isn't a button you push one time. Every time you take money out, you want to do these calculations. So now let's turn our attention to another inefficiency, a tax inefficiency. Okay, now we're going to dive into something else that I've got a lot of experience, expertise on. I've been interviewed in publications across the country, most notably the Wall Street Journal on this topic, which is Roth IRA conversions. I find a lot of the public is aware that the Roth is a tax-free investment or tax-free account, and that they feel like it may be some benefit to them. But most people are doing this with a blindfold on. They're just taking a wild stabbing guess at it. They're going to convert to maybe their current tax bracket or some other methodology. And the truth of the matter is, as you're about to see, there's a good, better, and best way to convert to Roth if you need to or should. If you've got a large IRA, $1 million or more, I don't think I've ever done analysis where it didn't help them. So we're going to dive into a case here and show you just the ins and outs of Roth. I'm going to show you what your tax return looks like when you retire and once you have to take your RMD, how much of a change it makes on your tax return at that point in time. So I'm not going to go too detailed on this. I think you'll be able to follow most everything I'm going to share. And anything I don't answer right now, when I do the complimentary consultation, I'll be sure to answer your questions. Let's dig right in. Well, one of the first things you're going to see when I do your analysis is this is a spending plan 1, and 2, you're going to see the probability of success. What does this probability of success mean? We use Monte Carlo theory, which is an algorithm that takes the very best situation to the very worst situation and applies it to your account. So if you have a 100% success rate given the worst set of circumstances, you're solid. Now, one way that's a little misleading is you don't have to have 100% to be considered successful. It's 70% is considered a successful plan. This couple here are the Kellermans. They've got the total net worth of $1.2 million. You'll see they've got $400,000 that is real estate. So they're about $880,000 or so in assets, investable assets. So we want to find out whether the Kellermans would benefit with a Roth. So Roth can do a couple things. Income that shows up on your return can initiate different types of taxation. If you make too much money during retirement, you'll pay a higher Medicare premium. That's essentially a tax. These RMDs that occur in the 70s can push you over the ledge and make you pay more tax. They can also attribute to your Social Security being taxed at a higher rate. So the Roth is also unique in that it's not accounted for any other way. If you do a tax-free muni bond, the federal tax is doing that, but the state tax is still taxable. So with the Roth IRA, there's no federal tax, no state tax, and initiates no other taxes. So the first thing I'm going to do with the Kellermans, the same thing I'm going to do in your case, is go to the tax tab here. Look at a couple options here, and we do a couple different things with this plan. One is going to be the tax planning. The other is going to be what account it comes out of, not the stock or bond issue, but whether it's a tax-deferred, a tax-for, or tax-free account. And we're going to toggle here this fill up the bracket here. So we're going to convert to a certain bracket. So initially, we're going to look at the count. So we're going to compare doing Roth conversion in different brackets. Right now, I have no Roth conversion taking place. So I'm going to go change this. I'm going to move a 10% bracket. And for this couple, the Kellermans, if they do convert to the 10% bracket, they've got $1.2 million more net worth left over. If they convert to the 12% bracket, they've got $5.6 million left over. If they convert the 22% bracket, it's 6.7. The 24 is 5. And the 32, 3.99. 35 is 2.4. So we would deduce here, the ideal place for them to go is the 22% bracket. And how would that look? So as I do your analysis, I'll be able to go in and I'll show you exactly when you convert. In this case, the Kellermans would convert these amounts over here through their age 66. And I'll show that converted and show what your tax-free balance is at that time frame. So it's not a huge conversion, but these relatively small amounts leave the Kellermans with a whole lot more money. Now you compare this to doing nothing at all. They're going to have zero tax-free money at the end of life versus 86% tax-free. Now we look at these differences here. That is almost $6.7 million more. However, we're not illustrating the tax movement. That's just the growth of the account is that more. So by the time you deduce the tax out of this, it's a bigger difference. Now, how does this affect your tax return? So let's take a look at the Kellermans and see what it does to their tax return to get that RMD in the year 2043. And you'll see on line 4B of the tax return, they've got a $297,520 RMD, resulting in a net tax of $99,413 in retirement. Now we're going to take this and we're going to show the Roth in the same year. Now the Roth leaves a $4,000 tax, $4,200 versus $99, saves them $95,000 the first year. Now you might think, gee, John, that's $95,000 a year. No, it's not, because the way RMDs are calculated is the percentage you take out each year is larger and larger, and your balance over time grows. So let's take a look at the current plan at their age 85, which would be 2053. And now, in 53, that RMD is $584,917. What's that do to the tax? Their tax at 85 years of age is $290,805 if they do nothing. So this persistent chase of investments throughout the universe, for people wanting to sell investments, people want to buy investments, that's only part of the equation. If you don't address this, you're simply letting money fall at the bottom of your back. So let's see what the Roth did in 2053. And here, you see we have no RMD, and the tax is $7,100. It's a huge difference. And the only way you can have that difference is to take action and perform the Roth IRA conversion. And this is something that we do when we do your analysis. We're going to do the Roth conversion for you to show you the good, better, and best way to go about that process. Also, we talked about distribution order. Part of distribution order is what type of assets you use first and last. I'll show you a bit of that here on this next page. So in addition to what stock you sell, the count matters here. So the taxable, tax-deferred, tax-free is one strategy. The pro rata says you take an equal amount out of every account. And in this case, that leaves you at $283,420 more. Now this is very interesting because in most cases, pro rata is not the best way to go. So what I'm going to share here, as you go forward in your life and your vision, try never to guess. Try to go based on facts and circumstances, and I think you find yourself much better served. We look at a couple other illustrations here. Here's tax-free, tax-deferred, which is no different, and taxable and pro rata, which is no different, and taxable, tax-deferred, taxable, tax-free. That strategy, no more rate of return, just that order of distribution leaves $1,125,078 more. Again, you need to know before you go. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is going to be something called investment efficiency. And I think you're going to find this very eye-opening. I'm going to share with you a tip. If you never hire me, something you can do to probably do a whole lot better with your money. Let us see what that's like. The third efficiency we're going to talk about is investment efficiency. Too often people are in a position of trying to find that gold nugget in the sand. If you just have an efficient portfolio, you'll do better than most people you run across. So what does efficient mean? Well, you have to measure anything you do. And we want to measure against the market or the benchmark. The biggest indexes out there is the S&P 500. It's the 500 largest company in the United States. And in most cases, it's going to have to be the index with the least volatility and the greatest rate of return. Keep that in mind. So you want to compare your portfolio against a given index to see how you're doing, whether you're efficient or not. So if you're doing as well as that benchmark, well, then you're very efficient. So let's take a comparison at 3 cases I've done here recently to kind of show you how that sits out. This is a client we came in, I call them JCN3, and look over the 5-year period, their portfolio had averaged 44.24%, and the market earned 68.41. So it's inefficient. Matter of fact, that's about a 24% loss. See, people often don't look at it that way. they look at maybe their expenses or the fees as a loss, but if you're not getting the market, that's a loss. On $1 million portfolio, that's $240,000. Now I'm going to share with you a tip that you can use whether you hire me or not. It'll be very helpful to most people. The S&P 500 typically has got the least risk and the most rate of return. When you go to smaller companies, like small companies, mid-cap companies, when you go to emerging markets, European stocks, all of those indices tend to be higher risk and make less money. I think in the pursuit of diversification, in other words, having some of everything, we buy those. But if you're adding stuff to your portfolio that's bringing it down, that's not the kind of diversification anybody wants. I'll give you an example. Take a look at this case here in X-Ray. Look at their holdings. And we're going to see here they have, here's some small cap stocks here, Vanguard small cap stocks. Well, let's compare it to the S&P 500 to see what the difference is over 5 years. And you see that those small cap stocks made 29.95% versus 69. That's a 40% difference. So that did not benefit them. The key to you, if you're your own and doing your own investing, just buy the S&P 500. The only reason not to buy that is if you can invest in a way that is less risky than S&P 500 and also can make more money. Take a look at one other case in this file here. They had a mid cap here, and we see that the mid caps made 38 while the market made 69. So you don't have to think too hard about this. And if you look at these, as I do every day, there's a rhythm that occurs. You'll see this pretty common. So that's the one case there. I'll take another case and show you. Most people that I do the analysis for, they're not efficient because they're used to buying mutual funds in their 401k. Quite frankly, about 70 to 80% of mutual funds don't do as well as that benchmark does. Here's another case. This case here, the market made 68 and they made 39. So that's a 29% loss they had. Of course, they never knew they had a loss. They figured they made 38%. And again, we're going to x-ray this again, and we're going to look at what holdings they have. Here again is a variety of holdings they've got. Here's an emerging market stock they have. Let's see how that did for them. Compare that against the S&P 500. And in this case, the Vanguard FTSE emerging markets lost 0.10, and the benchmark made 54. So that's just a huge, huge difference. And again, if you're doing your own investing, you'll probably do better to do just an S&P 500 index fund, which is something that I've heard Warren Buffett, or read Warren Buffett makes the same recommendation. I just want to show you there's a rhythm to this. These cases aren't exceptions. We see them all the time.
In this case, the client made about 42%, and the market made 36. That's about a 7% difference, but there's more. Let's take a look.
Here's the Vanguard Extended Markets. You can see the Extended Markets, again, a smaller category, not the S&P 500. They made 29%, and the market made 69%. So you see, that's a 40% difference. It's a whole lot of money to give up. And they probably unknowingly gave it up. They just want to have a little bit everywhere. But if you're investing in the wrong asset at the wrong time, it's a big cost to you. When you have your analysis done, I'll do the three analysis: investment, tax, and distribution efficiency. And these three things all combined, if we can save a little money or a lot of money on these things individually, it really makes a big ball of snow going down the hill. So people don't make mistakes on purpose. They make mistakes because they don't know any better. I want to segue now to really why we do this. What's the true value in having an efficient portfolio and knowing what you can afford to spend? So why do we do all this analysis? What's the purpose? The purpose is to allow you to have a vision. You know, the most common thing that I hear from people when they call me is, John, I wonder if I can make it. And stop and think about that. That's looking at things from the small end of the telescope, isn't it? We want our clients, our friends, to have a vision. I'll share with you some of the visions we've helped create in what it looks like in their lives. A client, Bill and Mary, came in a couple years ago, and their concern was, do we have enough money to retire? And we did the analysis, did the plan, worked with them for a number of months. And then lo and behold, one day they come into the office and said, John, look what we've done. They bought an RV and they're traveling all across the country. They went up north. And to put a cherry on top, their children live in North Carolina, their son does. And in North Carolina, they built on their property, the child's property, they built a separate apartment. So when they go to visit, they don't feel like they're imposing on disturbing their children. That's a vision right there. So the next case I'll share with you about is a client named Phil. He had a very large IRA and was concerned about all the taxes that were embedded in that. So I did some analysis and I said, hey, by the way, if you convert it over this many years and pay this much in taxes, it'll be Roth tax-free IRAs. So, lo and behold, he does it. Well, he does the first one. He complains about the taxes. I expect that. But the second, third year, still complaining about paying the tax. So it bothered me. I said, look, you don't have these Roths. Just stay where you are. You won't pay the taxes. But if you pay the taxes, you'll have a big benefit. Well, Phil's an engineer and not terribly sharing with his personal thoughts. So I wasn't really ever quite sure how really satisfied he was until about 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. We had an event here at the office, and I happened to overhear him talking to one of his former coworkers. And he was sharing how happy he was that now he pays zero income tax on his IRAs. They're all Roth. And in doing that, he's made his Social Security tax-free, and he pays the lowest Medicare premiums possible. That's the success story. Not too long ago, just this year, a new client contacted me, by the way, through a Facebook advertisement. And we did the financial planning for him. He had been working for many years with a good plan to try to save enough money to be retired, and the fashion wanted to be retired. And so I did all the planning, and things were just kind of going normal for a new relationship. And out of the blue, he sends me pictures that you're looking at right here. He said, Johnny goes, I bought a summer home about 2 hours from our house in Massachusetts. And he showed me all these pictures, how much he enjoyed it, how they plan to use it. And he added this, John, had I not met you, I wouldn't be doing this now. That is true success to me. And the last thing I'll share what my vision is. In my book, Live the Life You Get to Dream, I talk about the importance of helping other people. And there's a Circle K grocery store or gas station near my office. I happened to meet a lady there that worked there that didn't have a car. And it really bothered me that she was having to get people to give her rides, not just to work, but to the grocery store, the drugstore, etc. And one day she asked me out the blue, said, John, I'm getting a refund on my taxes. Can you help me find a car? I said, sure, I'll help you. And how much have you got to work with? She says, $1,000. So I thought, $1,000 ain't going to do it. Well, a few weeks later, she said, John, unfortunately, I'm not going to get that refund either. So I thought about that here in my office one day. I said, we can help this woman. We can make a difference. And take a look at this. We surprised her, showed up, surprised her with not a new car, but a nice car, and paid the first 6 months of her insurance. That's part of my vision. A lot of what I share with you comes from the book I wrote, Live the Life You Get to Dream. And specifically when I talk about the vision in this book. Vision is so important. I have a vision for my practice. One thing that's very important to me comes from my book. So as you may approach me, see me as a financial advisor, that's not our end goal. Our end goal is to enable people to have a life that otherwise wouldn't have. One thing that helps us do this is education. As I mentioned, vision, for you, that's really the most important thing for you right now, is to have your vision for your life, what you want your life to look like. Too many people focus on investments first and last when it comes to retirement. And money, the representation of money is time. All it represents is time. You've got a balance. That represents time you spent to earn that money. But that doesn't live your life for you. Now, I'm going to talk about these three efficiencies, distribution efficiency, tax efficiency, and investment efficiency. But first, I want to kind of share with you how I got to this point, how I started JCN Financial and Tax Advisor Group. 21 years ago, my mother-in-law had been with it 10 years, and she'd had trouble with the money. And she would bemoan her investments to us. I knew nothing about investments. I just said, June, tell the man you want something safe. Well, this is in 2002 we had this conversation. The market was real bad, and she was losing a good bit of money. And eventually she asked me to go with her as your advisor. So I go. Begrudgingly, I was a contractor at the time, and I'd assumed she just wasn't listening to my advice, which was be safe. So that morning, it was a crisp October morning, 02. I get to the office, nice financial planning office. As I walk in, I get a brisk handshake from the young man helping mother-in-law, and I tell him, hey, she's 70 years old, been with it 10 years, can't afford to lose another penny. And he says, don't worry, John, it always comes back. Which I found kind of odd. He wasn't really addressing my concern. As we sat down at the table, he's got all these other investments, which meant nothing to me. And I said, no, what I'm telling you is, she's 70 years old, she can't afford to lose another dime. What's he tell me? John, since 1929, the market's made 10%, she'll be fine. I was livid. He wasn't listening to me and embarrassed. My mother-in-law was sitting across the table. I've been blaming her all this time. Eventually, The third time I bring this up, and the third time he tells me, don't worry, it always comes back, I hit my hand on his desk, hardened up the spell of coffee. We walked outside, and I asked my mother-in-law, I said, good gosh, June, do you think other people are in the same shoes as you? There I got my vision. You'll see in my book really how this vision was created, but I came from a household where money was a real issue and tremendous burden on my mother, and I sat out in the courtyard that day. I wondered if I could help people, and I went into business. But I learned some things at first meeting. As this young man was telling my mother-in-law and I what to do, it occurred to me this really wasn't coming from him. He was simply an employee of the firm. The firm had their own objectives. And it occurred to me that, if I'm going to have a surgery, and before I have a surgery, they send the nurse out to tell me how the surgery is going to be done and what contingencies lie ahead, I wouldn't be comfortable. I want to talk to the surgeon. So when I went into this business, I determined that eventually I wanted to learn how to invest the money myself so I could have full control as I take responsibility for helping people have the life they otherwise wouldn't have. As I started this business, I realized I was starting with a clean slate. I really didn't know anything. And the most important thing was I didn't really see the challenge clients had. Yeah, their only concern was their money, but there's more to life than your money. And I learned it by default. June, my mother-in-law, hired me, and every year she came in the first couple of years, I'd review her performance, and it was good. And the third year I said, June, you want to spend some of this money. She told me, I don't want anything. I said, you don't want a new car? No, I like my car, John. I said, how about do furniture for your house? No, I like all my furniture. I said, shoot, how about travel? She said, John, I've been to Europe, I've been out west. The only place I want to go is Alaska, and I can't go by myself. And then a bell went off in my head. Interesting enough, I thought, so she wants to go to Alaska. So I made a joke. I said, shoot, take us, we'll go with you. Well, a few weeks later, in the mail to my office came brochures from a travel agent on Alaskan trips, Alaskan cruises. Look at the pictures here. My mother-in-law ended up taking 13 of us to Alaska. She was 70 years old, and we had a wonderful trip there. And what I learned then was what money can really do. We bought a memory there. We bought a memory. I flew up a plane to Fairbanks, Alaska. I can remember the first night we got there at 4 o'clock in the morning, the sun was out bright. Had wonderful things happen on that trip. Well, funny things happened. We went on a salmon bake where they cooked salmon on this island, they cooked salmon for us. Good meal. And me and some of my nephews and nieces and my children went for a hike. As we come back, we see the gentlemen that have been cooking our food, these long poles standing in the barbecue pit. And we said, what's going on? And said, well, while y'all were gone, a bear came, 3 bears came, and they started scraping the debris off the grill, and the men chased up those trees over there. I share this with you because we have innumerable stories we talk about on a weekly or monthly basis. Now, why is it so very important? Well, my mother-in-law now is 89. Money didn't matter to my mother-in-law 89. She's got dementia. I help 12 hours a day. The reason I've been sharing this about my life, my mother-in-law's life, and this vision thing is so important is, in order to help you, I've got to get you to dream. I've got to get you to have the mindset that's different than what so many people have. When I hear people at retirement today, I hear a lot of negative connotations. The most negative thing I hear is, can I make it? Those are words of survival. So one way to abate that is to do a written spending plan. That'll help you understand whether you can make it and how well you can do that. So we want to develop, we don't want to say my self-confidence or the positive attitudes will get me over the hump. I just want you to understand whether or not you can make it and how will you do so. And think beyond the dollar. What do you want? What do you want your life to be like? What's important to you? Those are things I need to hear to help you. The money part, as you're going to see, is academic. Now, you might not think it's academic. I'll tell you why you might not think that. Most of what you hear about finances when you're talking to somebody about it is somebody that has something to sell you, a product to sell you. Keep in mind, if you're going to sell somebody a product, your energy is behind moving that product, not helping that person. By the way, to hire me, you don't pay me a commission. I charge a fee for that, and I'll share that at that point in time. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this. This plan is a $1,500 value. So you should ask yourself, John, if it's a $1,500 value, why are you giving it away? Well, that's a good question. And there's two answers. One is, I cannot give you or anybody else advice without doing that plan. If I don't do the plan, I'm simply offering an opinion and taking an unnecessary risk there. So I have to do the plan in order to do that. And second of all, we're a very successful practice, been here 21 years, and we have a large number of people that want to do the plan end up hiring me. So after you watch this video and you understand distribution planning, something should click in your head, and you should ask yourself, what else can I do that I'm not doing that's absent of risk? So now it's time to get started with your vision. How do you do that? Well, it starts with the plan. So click below, register for a complimentary consultation, won't charge a dime, and I assure you, when you get through with your plan, you'll have a peace of mind you didn't have prior. Take care.